Welcome everyone. While we have to hold our smiles from laughing so hard, my name is Rafael, or Raf, as you prefer to call me. I'm here with Kevin from the YouTube channel Gigs and Guitars. The link is on the comments and is going to be on the description as well, because we are actually not that far apart, geographically speaking, and we've had some encounters and dealings. So I'll just start
Absolutely.
by saying that the first time that I saw your channel was when you were reviewing the Ansley Lister gig at the
Mm.
Waterloo Music Bar, and I was like, oh, I was at that gig as well, and which led me then to all of your YouTube channel that has great playing, great looking and playing guitars, and also really in-depth interviews, gig reviews, and every once in a while even gear, which seems to be what everyone actually likes to talk about.
They do. They do. You know. Well, firstly, can I say thank you ever so much for inviting me onto your channel, Raphael. It's an absolute pleasure, and thanks for talking about gigs and guitars and how you like it and how you first came across it. It's nice, to get some feedback. So yeah.
Absolutely. I keep pestering you about things. Well, it's just conversation, really. But you've done a really great series on the classic rock show. You even interviewed like Pete Thorne, that is a household name here on YouTube, and the guys from Rumors of Fleetwood as well, right?
Yeah, we've had a bit of an interesting year, and it's, to be honest, the Gigs and Guitars YouTube channel was kick-started as a result from me basically in 2021 retiring from the police service, which is what I basically did, and it's something to do, something to focus my energy on. In fact, it was my sister, Amanda, who plays keyboards in the bands that I play, and suggested that I do this. She said, "You've got a wealth of knowledge. Why don't you do a YouTube channel?" And that's where we are today. For me, the YouTube channel is all about trying to just get the message out there how difficult it is being a musician, a performer, from grassroots level right up to sort of the pros who are touring the world.
Yeah.
So this year, yes. So this year we got a great opportunity to basically interview the Classic Rock Show, which is a CMP production. And if you're not seeing the Classic Rock Show, if you're looking for the ultimate in the recreation of classic rock tunes, you need to go and see them because they will be touring in January. The
All right.
musical director is James Cole. I got a call from him in January. I sort of reached out to him a few times. Then he called me in January, said, "Kev, do you want to come along?" I said, "Yep, I'd love to." And that's how it all started, really. So we did 8 interviews in total.
Well, that's a lot, especially because they're not performing next door. They're not even at the Winter Gardens. They are going to all these different places across the Northwest and elsewhere to go find the artists and everything. I've also seen you play live, so you are not one of those guys like myself that mostly plays in their bedroom. But I've seen you play with your bands, the Cooper Collective, and
That's
in a few
right. Yeah.
different places, actually, at the Old Town Hall in Bolton and also here at the Stanley Conservative Ward. You're very proficient in what you do. You also sing, which caught me a bit by surprise. I don't know why. It was just like, oh yes, of course. He also
Somebody
does.
has to do it, don't we?
Yes, exactly, of course. And also at the Stanley Park in the outside, what's it
Yeah.
called?
It's at the
The
bandstand at the Stanley Park, isn't
bandstand.
it?
That's it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
So,
we've done that a few times.
and you were playing last year with a 6-member band, so 2 singers besides yourself, keyboard, bass, and drums. Was there
Yeah.
anything that, from your experience gigging and from watching these shows that are originals, like James Nicholson, which is coming to Blackpool next year, isn't he?
He is.
And the Classic Rock Show and these CMP productions, that you've been able to apply to your own gigs, or has it proved that's like just getting the gig going and everyone on schedule is already enough of a challenge?
Yeah. Okay. So what happened was before lockdown, I was in between bands and stuff. Around about say 2017, 2018, That's when I first came across the Classic Rock Show, and I saw the videos on YouTube. And I basically thought, wow, this is really good stuff. And note for note perfection, the production was brilliant. And at that time, I had a bit of a jam with a chap called Norman Burrows. He's a great bass player. And we had a conversation about putting a project together, which ultimately became the Cooper Collective. And the approach for that band was to take a slice of the action from the Classic Rock Show, which was their approach, but put that into like a pub club band environment. So if we can sort of raise the standard to a degree, so we're looking at very carefully what music people want to hear, what the arrangement was going to be, and how we're going to produce that between 5 or 6 people in a live pub environment. And that's what we set out to achieve. So the sound levels have got to be right, the sound mix has got to be right, the material's got to be right, and how we actually play it has got to be as right as we can get it with the 5 or 6 people that we have. So, for example, looking at the Classic Rock Show again, they have 8 people on stage. They have obviously several sound engineers, lighting engineers. They've obviously got the guitar techs. They've got all that support that we don't have. But we were going to take a chunk of what they do and try and put it into a pub in Blackpool. And that's what we set out to do. And I think we did a good job of that. Then COVID came along and we stopped like everybody did, you know. So, and that was just the nature of the beast. But ultimately, that was the main plan. So we performed all over the Fylde Coast in the Cooper Collective. At that point, when we started off, we had Christy Joyce, great vocalist. My sister was on keyboards, Norman obviously on bass. We've had a number of drummers. We seem to have a bit of a problem with keeping all the drummers, unfortunately, in the Cooper Collective. And but yeah, it was a good band, you know. So we were doing tracks like Fleetwood Mac, The Chain. Recently, we're doing stuff by the Bangles, and yeah, it's all sort of good stuff. But what we tried to do was song choices that other bands in the area don't do or have overdone in some ways. So we tried to pick the really good hitting tracks that other bands just don't touch, and that's what we aim to do. And that approach seemed to work quite well for us. So
yes, that does explain a lot, because having seen you guys play and perform, and having seen the audience reaction to when you were playing, I think that has translated. Obviously, a CMP production that I've seen Rumors of Fleetwood Mac. If you look at like the stage alone and the sound and the suits and the dancing, and it's like it's a lot. But taking the principles of, like you just mentioned, the levels being right, not too loud but not too quiet, everything being able to be heard correctly, the arrangement being appropriate, and using all the parts to the best extent. For example, I don't think I ever heard you just strum along the chord progression just because like some people have looked at the tabs and they're like, okay, we're gonna just play along to whatever it is. So it does come across, and it requires a lot of hard work and rehearsing and getting it through. So
yeah,
definitely. And the song choice as well, it's so important, because like I said, some songs I might like, but maybe the majority of the audience will not care for. And others everyone likes, but everyone has heard them 100 times. So why book you instead of someone else that does it?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of an interesting thing. So we've got, say, for example, a little bit of a process whereby we look at, say, an A-list artist, we look at their A-list chart-topping hits, and we look at the chart-topping hits that nobody has done in the area. And if 97% of the audience are aware of those tracks, then you're onto a little bit of a winner, really. And that, again, with the sound levels, the actual approach to how we play these tracks and deliver them, it's all about pulling people in rather than pushing them out. And that's the main thing, because I think when you look at the music industry, as I've seen it this last couple of years, from grassroots, you've got cover bands like us, then you've got tribute bands and acts, then you've got original artists. All the cover bands at the bottom support the rest of the industry. And that is what pubs want all over the UK. They want cover bands to play music that people want to hear. And that's where the original artists can struggle in trying to break out of the cover band sort of tribute act into their own world and start performing and basically getting seen by audiences. And that is difficult, but the whole industry is basically supported by the cover bands in pubs.
Yeah.
Which is what you do, it's what I do. So.
Exactly. No, but it's a very good point. And for example, comparing to the scene in Portugal that is barely existent, really, there's a lot of parties in summer, but it's a lot of popular music, traditional popular music, folk music, almost sort of thing. Here, there is a wider spread of musicians that are actually able to work, because there's all these pubs and bars and venues that require light entertainment, which is music for the background a lot of the times. And I was watching Rumors of Fleetwood, speaking of which, and I was thinking that there was a bunch of young artists, really professional, capable artists, that they were doing a gig that is playing the same songs from 50 years ago. Which on one hand is like, shouldn't this be their opportunity to shine with their own material? But will they be able to have a steady income at the level that a production that size is able to provide, doing their own thing? However, picking up from there, Jesse Smith from the Classic Rock Show, the singer with the luscious long hair, has been doing a tour through the UK, and it seems to be successfully. He has sold out a few places and everything, hasn't he?
He has.
I don't know if he's doing covers though.
Yeah. Well, he's actually doing his own material. And again, obviously, when I did the interviews in January, February this year, and if you want to watch the interviews, they are really interesting. So just jump onto the Gigs and Guitars YouTube channel. You find 8 videos there where you've got the interviews with Jess Harwood, who's also from Blackpool, Jesse Smith. You've got Ricardo Afonso.
My fellow man.
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely. You've got Tim Brown, the drummer, Wayne Banks, awesome bass player, James Cole, one of the guitarists, who's obviously the musical director for the Classic Rock Show, and anything else to do with CMP Entertainment. And then finally, you've got Pete Thorne, who's a Canadian, born in, who's now in Los Angeles, who's a big YouTube guitarist, phenomenon, if you will. So when you did these interviews, what I was trying to get was a snapshot. How difficult is it being a professional musician in the modern day world to pay your bills, you know? And what I did see in the background was these people, when they're doing the tours and everything, there we go, it's on the screen now. I can see it, fantastic. So when they're not doing tours like this, they're all got little bits of fragments of other tours and bits and pieces going on all over the place. But take, for example, Wayne Banks, who's the bass player. He's a HGV, large goods vehicle driving instructor. And that's what he does when he's not touring or being a professional musician. Obviously, his passion is live music. But when he's not doing that, he's teaching people how to pass their HGV driving test. That's just incredible. And the others have all got a very similar story. And check out the interviews because they are interesting. And in fact, I've watched 1 or 2 interviews recently purely because I've forgotten what they've talked about. Because
it does happen.
Yeah,
you have to go back and like, oh, I did say that. It does.
So it's quite interesting. Kind of stuff, really. I mean, of course, you've got like Pete Thorne, who's in LA. He does bundles and bundles of, say, for example, overdrive pedal reviews, gear reviews,
amps, guitars,
plugins. That's obviously his bread and butter sort of life, if you will. They've all got a different story to tell. Now, Jesse Smith, he's got a small Christmas tour on the go at the minute. He does his own original material. What you probably don't know is that he's one of the vocalists in Strictly. I don't know whether you knew that.
No, I don't watch TV, basically.
Yeah, so he did quite a number of the sort of songs in the Strictly series recently. Most notably, the Tower Ballroom at Blackpool, he did that one. And I think he did quite a good few others this year. Indeed, the same as the previous year as well. So they've all got bits and pieces going on all over the place. And I'm thinking, I've come from a public sector life of having a salary, guaranteed pay every month. how difficult is it to be a pro musician in the modern day world? They've got to be all over social media every single minute of the day, promoting this, that, the other. I just won't be able to keep up with it if I was in that position. So
Yeah, because they have to always be spinning a plate, looking for the next
yeah,
thing, and leveraging the more stable and well-known gigs, like, oh, the singer of Strictly, and that has done this and this now in your town doing his original work, and people might be wondering like, oh, okay, and then you see it on Facebook, it's like, oh yeah, I recognize his face from
that's
something
it.
else.
Yeah, yeah,
On the other hand, it does show that it is possible for like for me, or for when you were working, to have a day job and then try to make something out of these evenings, and not just treat it as a hobby in the terms of being just something that you do to have a bit of fun, but actually
yeah.
have almost like a second job in terms of how you look at it. But on the other hand, having a second job is a lot of work.
Yeah, I would imagine it is. So, so obviously, the beginning of the year for me personally, gigs and guitars, we kicked off the year with 8 interviews, and we did the first 4 interviews in Liverpool at the Philharmonic Hall. Great venue if you've never been there, guys. It's absolutely brilliant place to go and watch shows. I'm there quite a lot of times during the year. So we did 4 interviews in an afternoon. I was assisted by my girlfriend's brother-in-law, Andy. If you're watching this, Andy, big shout out to you. Couldn't have done it without you. Because when we got the nod from James Cole to actually go and do the interviews, the filming, I had all my portable lighting gear, cameras, all the gear was checked the day before. I had question sets printed out, ready to go. When it came down to it, we had very little time to actually conduct the interviews. We had hardly any time at all to set lighting up. And you go there with all these elaborate ideas of like lapel mic here, lapel mic there, lighting here, lighting there. And when it comes down to it, right, you've got 20 minutes. Jesse Smith is in his dressing room down there. Go and find him and do your interview. And then you've got Pete Thorne on stage over here in 25 minutes time. And if you watch the videos, you'll see in 1 minute, I'm in a dressing room. And it was literally like this. 2 seconds later, I'm throwing my gear together on the stage and I'm interviewing somebody else. And it really was on the hoof because we couldn't possibly interrupt with their schedule because they had a show to do that night. It was their priority to make sure they're on time with everything. And I'm just thankful to James Cole and all the members of the Classic Rock Show in giving us the opportunity to share their stories. And that's what we intended to do. Hopefully,
And there
we'll
was a
get
lot
to
of
do some more with them. Yeah.
there was a lot of good advice. I watched the interviews, and it was really interesting to see how they are as musicians, how they look, for example, how they look at learning sets, at getting the gig, at preparing, how they choose who does what.
Yeah.
Because or the parts that each person plays with having several guitars on stage and keyboards and different singers as well, how they decide who does what. So it was really insightful, which leads me to segue into the perspective, because you did a video last week about your Fender Telecaster that we can see here there behind you. Your other left.
I don't know what I'm doing. It's that one there.
And comparatively to the other videos that you mentioned that have been a lot more work in terms of traveling, planning an interview, so you don't ask the same questions like you even told me before of what sort of strings do you use, what's your favorite amp, that sort of thing. Bringing someone along, probably having to eat something in the area when it doesn't mean staying overnight somewhere. There is some viewing numbers, and some of them have done really well. But and then you make a video about your Telecaster, which is a much simpler process, I would imagine, which you're at home, you record, you play, and then it picks up, because in a week is then 4,000 views, which is really good for a channel that hasn't hit the 1,000 subscribers yet. How does that make you feel?
So I keep having this conversation. How does YouTube work? And trying to sort of figure it out. People talk about the algorithm. I really don't know. But what I can say is you've hit the nail on the head. And it's something that I'm currently reviewing at the minute, is the performance of the channel, and are we going in the right direction with it? And what that video was nailed down is that making the simpler videos where you're not traveling, incurring expenses, because you're looking at traveling costs, overnight accommodation, then you've got, like I say, food and all the rest of it, entrance to shows, the fees and stuff. Then when you come away from that, you've got to do a full review. You've got to research the artists you're doing reviews on. In the voiceovers, sorry, in the videos this year, what I have done is when I'm introducing an artist or a show, I do a voiceover, which is a background, a summary of their life. So, for example, like the Nile Rodgers video I did, that was probably one of the best shows this year I've been to, and one of the best shows in terms of production, lighting, energy. The whole lot was just perfect. There was nothing I could basically criticize about that show. But you come away from that, you do your research on Nile Rodgers, his background, the artists that he's worked with, like David Bowie, Madonna, Diana Ross, Duran Duran. It's endless. And you put that together into a program. Before you know it, you think, hang on a minute, I've just spent 2 days of research and editing, just doing the voiceover and that research. And then you put the video out and you think, oh, it's only had like so many views. But when you look at the Telecaster video, I've got the right side now. Yes. The Telecaster view, in 7 days, it's had over 4,000 views. And you think, well, that's me just sitting there talking about a Telecaster that doesn't play all that well. And I've done a few modifications to it. And it's turned into probably one of the best playable guitars I've got. I'm almost there with it. And if you watch the video, which I know you have, the next stage is to look at the string tension. And that's probably going to end up with a slinky gauge of strings on it and see what that does, which is the next sensible step. But getting back to the videos, all the gig reviews I've done in terms of the balance between views the videos had and the amount of effort you put into them, they're not very good for the channel. That's the problem. We did have a little bit of a negative setback in November, which made me completely rethink the channel, thinking, am I enjoying doing the Gigs and Guitars YouTube channel at this point in November? And I thought, do you know what? I'm not. And that's where you can end up with the YouTube sort of burnout. But what I thought about was the direction. If I change the direction, it becomes more enjoyable. And by doing the Telecaster video and other bits and pieces, it has become more enjoyable. Now, the negative from November was we spoke to a management company with an artist. I'm not going to mention who that artist was. And what happened was we got a guaranteed interview with that artist, and it was a date and time at a location. We went there. So we got obviously time and effort getting there, overnight accommodation, and all the rest of it. And when it came down to it, sorry, we don't know anything about this. And you think, oh no, and it's like, so when you look at the classic rock show, yes, when you look at the classic rock show interviews, you look at the interview of Jess Harwood, who's from Blackpool, who sings several songs within the classic rock show, but she also fronts Rumours of Fleetwood Mac. She does all the Stevie Nicks stuff very, very well. She's absolutely brilliant. Incidentally, she came to see us in our band. I didn't know this at the time, but she was there when we played Stanley Park in the summer this year. She was there.
All right.
Yeah, she was there. And we had a conversation about it a day later. I was gobsmacked she was there. Anyway, but the bottom line is her video is in excess of 15,000 views at this moment in time. So that says to me, the interviews are the big wins because people want to know about the artists. The reviews of gigs aren't very good. And the problem is just getting that door open to interview people. Now, in my 30 years in my previous role, I was sent on some hugely expensive interviewing courses to do with complex investigation and interview skills. So, and the outcome is all the same in these things, is just getting people to talk about themselves. Now, whether it's to do with show business, performing, guitars, or whatever I used to speak to people about.
Are you questioning artists on a monthly basis? Is this an interrogation? I didn't know this, but they're actually being interrogated, having not the Met Police, but the constabulary of Lancashire techniques applied to them to get the dirty truths.
Yeah.
Make them
Well, I said to Pete Thorne, just as we're wrapping up at the end of his video, and he stood there with a cup of coffee in his hand. I said, "We paid for that cup of coffee, Pete." And he says, "I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to go to jail." He says, "No, no, no." So yeah. So with the Classic Rock Show, guys, we had a great time, and then we moved on from those series, and we've done a number of gig reviews through the year. We did the Blackberry Smoke, we did the Nile Rodgers, we did the Joe Bonamassa at the Blackpool
Hollywood
Winter
Vampires
Gardens.
as well.
Hollywood Vampires, we drove all the way to Scarborough to watch that. We were going to go and see them anyway, so that didn't really. So you can offset the expenses in that. But if you basically, if somebody says to you, say for example, here's some free tickets to a show, sort of like Leeds, we're in Blackpool or whatever, you know. So it might be free tickets if you're offered those, but you still got to get there. You've still got to basically incur all the other expenses as well. Then you've got to produce a video, and you've got to basically sort of look at that balance. Is it worthwhile in terms of the views and ratings?
If it was a hired job, if you were being hired by the company to do those, and you were given a budget to do it, then even if there was not a lot of views, whatever views there were is promotional material for the event. But out of your own back, and then having to be sort of expecting the reaction of the public, it's sort of the reason why public television exists, because not everything is a marketing appropriate, but it's important to exist within the realm of media to be consumed for posterity. Like in 100 years' time, if humankind still exists, there is going to be our reviews of the Blackberry Smoke gig from 2023, and people are like, wow, that was really interesting. But now, not so many people might be maybe as interested in it or go look for it as it is. So that's something for you to consider, right? Isn't it? For maybe you could just, you know, sell that nice Firebird that you have behind you. I'm sure you have no sentimental attachment to that, and just buy a bunch of Harley Benton places. Exactly, just buy a bunch of 100-pound guitars, and you'll be able to build up your channel throughout the next year with like 60 of them. And
that's it. That's it.
Because that's what people want to watch. So I had sent you some questions, and now I sort of lost track of what I was going with it. I think we already sort of hit a lot of the points that we had to. We have here a James Baring saying Brill. I'm going to assume is a relative.
Oh yeah,
a fellow Barry.
Oh, that's James. Cheers, James. Yes, my son. By the way, James is a great guitar player. He's doing really. In fact, I'll just tell you a little bit of a story about James. Today, we basically he's taking delivery his first Gibson Les Paul. That is on its way at the minute. So he's really doing well. And this is his first big purchase, because he's moved up from the realm of sort of beginner, intermediate, and he's now getting to that stage where it's like, hang on, he's going to be playing in pubs, possibly alongside his dad or his own bands or whatever, you know. So it's exciting times when you can see your kids doing well, and that's really
good. Is the problem. This is the problem with the mentality. Gibson doesn't mean that it's a professional instrument. There are plenty of professional instruments for way less than a Gibson, but it's nice to have them. It's nice to see on stage. So I get both parts. You played my Eastmans when I went to you, whatever that was, and the comparison was it's not that different from your own Gibson standards, but it's not
there's no bad guitars these days. You know, when I started playing, my sort of mid to late teens, you know, my first guitar was a black acoustic called a Hondo. It was like it's just made out of balsa wood or plywood or something. The action was terrible, and you basically gave up. You just brought that one down from your wall there, and I can see that looks like an amazing guitar already. And the quality of what I'm coming onto these days is massively superior to what it was 30, 40 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that is a case in point, what you've got there.
Because that was the difference a few years ago. In order to get quality, you had to get a Gibson or you had to have a Fender, because no one else was making guitars at that level. I just brought this down because it's a Share Gold. So it's a Share Gold Provocateur. It has locking tuners, roasted mahogany, Seymour Duncan pickups, so P90, and pearly gates with the split here, freeway.
Yeah.
And it's you can find it for £500 on the used market. So,
I
but
mean that just
but you look
goes to
at this,
show.
and it's
Yeah.
not the thing. It's not the thing. It's an alternative design. At least it's not a copy.
Yeah. It's a very nice guitar. Like I say, if it's well appointed with the Seymour Duncan pickups, and I can see your other stuff on the wall there. You know, you don't have to spend a fortune in buying a quality guitar. I mean, look at that Telecaster. I'm over here now. That Telecaster there, that's a 2000 model year American vintage reissue. So it's an exact replica of what's produced in the early 1950s by Leo Fender. And it's got the quirks of that guitar because it's made on the original tooling. So it's not a cheap guitar to actually buy. But it has its issues, as I put in that video. And then you look at Gibson's before 2018, before they had the management restructured. There's a lot of quality control issues. They went off in different directions with what they felt the customers wanted. And thankfully now they're producing stuff to a higher standard, but equally more importantly, what the customer wants. And that's basically guitars that look and feel vintage as they were back in 59 and 60. So
And you even told me a while ago about that Fender Strat, the blue one that you have there in the back, that you had to do something with it as well, didn't you?
Yeah, that's again, it's a custom shop Strat, so it's not going to be cheap. And I've got my black one there, which you can just about see. Now that's an American vintage reissue. That's me thinking.
It's hard. We all feel the pain that Philip Knight has every week trying to point at guitars.
Yeah. So the custom shop is down the end now, and that has had playability issues for about a year now. And I sent it to my local guitar store, and they had a shin point in the neck. Then I've been doing a bit of work with Carl Longbottom Guitars. I've done a review on his 037, which is a Gibson Les Paul Junior replica, and that's a fantastic guitar. Anyway, the story was I still got the playability issues. So I sent the guitar off to Carl Longbottom. He had it for a couple of weeks while I did a review on his 037, which is very, very nice. It came back, and there's some nice improvements to that guitar, but I've still got to get it to where I want it to be. And the benchmark is the black Strat just behind my headphones there. The Telecaster feels very similar to the setup on the black Strat now, which is good. And what I'm after really, if I was in the gig environment, if I'm swapping guitars, they need to feel familiar. I'm not after them being exactly the same, but I don't want them going, oh, you know, and having a heart attack thinking I can't play this. And it takes me about a minute to get used to strings not being in the right place and the feel being completely different, you know. So that's where I am with it. So the blue custom shop at around about, was that about 3,500, I think it is. And my black Strat was around about £1,300. The Telecaster was about 13. You know, you've just pulled a guitar off the wall over there, which you mentioned was about £500-600. My son James, we just mentioned just before, we're going to be doing a video on this in January as well. He's got a Vintera Strat made in Mexico.
Oh yeah,
that is incredible. On the used market as well, absolute bargain of the year. And you can tour with these things around the world, and they're great. You know, it's a minefield. Yeah, you can get sucked into the custom shop stuff or whatever, but you don't need to. There's a guitar for every budget, what your use for them are. So
that's the thing. That's absolutely. For example, this one, this is the cheapest one that I have. I traded this guitar for a pedal. So I had a fuzz pedal. I traded it for the guitar because it has a roasted maple neck.
Yeah,
but it was a sunburst. So I then finished with a spray can. It got sticky because I didn't do the steps properly. Obviously, I didn't have the patience and then so I had to strip everything down, and then I use these products from the both guitars that I've been mentioning about.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And refinished everything, and then I did a light relic job, whatever. It's not great, but it's not the worst thing on the face of the earth. But I put Seymour Duncans in it, and for I don't know, £100 and something, it's a guitar that I've taken to gigs. Actually, the last
Yeah,
few open mics that I've done, I've taken these instead of my other ones that are not as expensive as like the guitars that you just mentioned, but still, it's like I'm just gonna take the cheapest one that I have, because then I don't have to worry about dinging it, breaking it.
that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, yeah. It's a funny world because what you're saying there is exactly what I've established pro musicians do as well. So, say for example, that Firebird there is
Mhm.
an expensive guitar, and I'd be really selective about where I would take that. I played that in the Waterloo Music Bar.
Yes.
Two reasons: because one, I know it's going to be safe, and secondly, it's a big, wide open stage where I'm conscious of mic stands and swinging the neck around. I don't want to catch headstock on anything,
Yeah.
whereby you can end up with the neck on the floor broken in half, which can be a problem with
It will
Firebirds
be
and
so
Les
painful.
Pauls and stuff. Yeah. So when I spoke to Ido Escordo, who at the time was touring the UK in the Brit Floyd show,
Yeah.
he tours. They've just done a big tour of the States at the minute, and at the time it was a CMP production. I asked him about his Fender Strat, which was on stage, and it was in the distance. I couldn't get to it. And we had a bit of a meet and greet, so had a bit of a conversation about gear and stuff. And he told me it's not what you think it is. And it was a Mexican-made Vintera, and all he's done is change the pickups in it. And he says, I'm happy to take that around the world because it does everything he wants it to do. And at that point, I think they're about £600-700 to buy those. And he's put
Mhm.
EMG pickups in it, which is what
Yeah.
David Gilmour had in his Strats.
Oh, I was looking at
Many,
those the other
many,
day for no reason at all, but it was like those, and Steve Lukather as well has an EMG set. It's like,
yeah, and he's happy with a budget guitar set up very well, and he can do big professional gigs all over the world. Brit Floyd are worth watching. They're coming back to the UK later on in 2024. So
mhm.
if you like your Pink Floyd stuff like I do, and you never know, I might be able to do some work with them later in the year. He has mentioned I might do some stuff backstage with them, like I did with the Classic Rock Show. We'll see what comes of that, because it's all interesting stuff. We want to know how these guys tick, what gear they
Yeah.
use, how do they use it, what doesn't work, what does work, and we
Yeah,
can
because
soak that in. Yeah,
yeah, it's the thing that I found about gigs, either tributes or original artists. Even for example, Ainsley Lisa that I've gone to see again. I think you were there as well.
I
Regardless,
was there again.
you
Yeah,
were there again, right? It's like
I
I
was
didn't
there
dream that.
again.
It's inspiring seeing these
Yeah,
productions of different sizes, but listening to the music live at
mm,
volume and appreciating, even when if there's a mistake or there's something, how they are actually performing. It's such a different environment to just listening to music at home or in the car, or even if it's loud. It's a completely different experience, and
yeah,
I can understand why you have this passion of trying to share with people the experience of being at these gigs. But
yeah,
really, it is because it is worth, if it was worth doing. Um, so that being said, if there are professionals that are more affordable and you can take them to gigs, but there's also that aspect that we want to take what we actually envision ourselves playing in terms of what our idols or people that we like
yeah.
use as well, the Fenders and the Gibsons of this world. How do you go about choosing guitars? I know that you have a very specific collection. You have a few gigging instruments, and you have like the Firebird is one that tends to stay more at home because of that. Do you spend time looking at gear when you don't need anything, like myself, always on Facebook Marketplace or watching YouTube channels
Yeah,
review it,
it's
or do you tend to be like, I have what I have and I'm happy with it,
yeah,
and when it comes time,
it's a good question, and the what I would say is that um, if, say, for example, there's a couple of live music venues in, say, Blackpool, whereby, so I'm just getting tangled up in the lead here. There we go. Right, I'm all right now. Um, I'm always falling over wires and
yeah,
things.
trapped by
Um,
your own wires.
that's it. Wrapped around my leg about 4 times. So for example, if I'm playing, it depends on the environment. Sometimes. So, say for example, there's a couple of venues in Blackpool where I can only take the one guitar. Now, what one guitar would I take out of my collection? Now, what I have done is it's not on my wall here, It's actually downstairs at the minute. I've got an Ibanez JS1000, a Joe Satriani Signature Series Super Strat from the early 2000s. It's in the rare white colour, and that is probably the guitar that I would pick up, throw in a case, and if it's like a gig abroad or something, it'd be ideal because it's nice and light. Humbuckers, coil tapping, Floyd Rose on it. The only thing that's a bit of a pain in the backside is if you have to drop your tuning down to like drop D or drop C.
If you break a string or
break a string, that it all goes wrong. But having said that, though, where are we? That one there, can you see it from your head? The Gibson Les Paul Junior, just there.
Yeah.
I did a gig in Polton-le-Fylde with that, and in Bispham. It was the only guitar I took. And the good thing about the P90 pickup on the Les Paul Junior, that's a custom shop, is that it's got the full grit of me Gibson Les Paul gold top. But when you back off that single coil pickup, it cleans up to very crystal bell-like Fender kind of tone, so you can really back it off. The only problem is radio interference with it being a single coil pickup. You do get a bit of hump going on and stuff, but for me, that's part of the character of these things. Same with the Telecaster. Anything with single coils, I really don't mind. So getting back to the guitars for me have got to have a purpose. I've got to use them. They're not cherished. I'm not bothered about bits of dings or scratches or whatever. I like a guitar that's able to deliver the tones and everything I need from it. Quite a number of people have come up to me in the last few years and said, that's a great guitar tone. And that's down to not only the guitars, but understanding the signal chain of tone. I'm a big advocate of not going mad with gain and overdrive. I'm going the opposite direction.
If someone saw your rig, might think that you would go that way because you use a Laney Iron Heart, which is typically associated with metal. But it is true. There's not that much gain going on when you're playing it. It's pretty edge of breakup clean, but really nice and full.
Yeah, that's how I try and sort of present it. So when I go to any kind of environment with that rig, I've got my sweet spot. We're set my master volume to where that sweet spot is, and I know exactly where it is. And we did a gig at the Marine Hall at Fleetwood 4 weeks ago, and again, it was in the sweet spot. It was being mic'd up, so I didn't need to worry about front of house as a sound engineer that was dealing with all that stuff. But I'd have the amp set up in the world's smallest pub to the same level. Now, somebody came up to me a few months ago and said, "Oh, your guitar's dead loud. You need to turn your volume down." And this is where there's a little bit of a misunderstanding, because I've taken the Junior, which is a very transparent guitar. It's very top-endy in the frequency range, more so than the regular guitars. Yeah, so it cuts through more. So I didn't turn down. I just turned the tops down. Yeah, on the treble. And that's great. Yeah, thanks very much. So I didn't touch master volume, so the valves and everything's working within a sweet spot. I've just knocked down the treble just a touch, because it was purely because of that guitar. So that's all about cutting through the mix. So but getting back to your question, it's guitars have got to have a purpose and do all the tones and things that I need in a 25 song set over the course of 2 hours. They've got to be able to adapt. So I normally take two guitars, generally the gold top Les Paul and the black Strat are my go-to ones. But more recently, I did the gig at the Marine Hall, and equally Stanley Park, I took the blue custom shop because I thought that needs to get out there. That needs to be played. It needs to win its place and do its stuff. So yeah. Does that answer your question?
No, not at all. Because
no. We're all still looking at adverts and reviews, aren't we? So,
thank you. What I wanted you to say is yes, I'm often tempted. I'm always thinking about the next purchase that I'm gonna do, the next model that I don't quite have. I don't have a 335. I'd love to have a 335. Something that's, for example, Marcy's commenting here. I don't know who this woman is saying no comments. She's clearly a hater. I don't know. She's probably next door putting the kids to sleep, but I have nothing to do with her. She just sleeps in my bed sometimes.
All right.
But because I have a hairstyle right? And then a T style, and then
Yeah.
a dual humbucker guitar, very important to have. And
Yeah.
why I have no idea, because when I'm playing live and I'm trying to work, so I use the Helix, and I'm either going through PA or through
Yeah.
the Line 6 Helix Catalyst
Mm.
as a power amp with two 12-inch speakers. And I'm most of the time I'm like in the bridge pickup to have the cut, because I use the split with the bass sounds and the guitar sound. It's a mess. I should just have a band properly, but it's a duo,
Yeah.
so we work with what we have. And then when I have something that should really be played in an acoustic guitar, but I'm still using an electric guitar for some reason, I tend to go to the neck pickup or the middle pickup to retain some of the thing. So just going back to this guitar, in actuality, this is the sort of setup that I really need and that I really use.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that because you've got the benefit of your humbucker and your two single coils. You've got, it's got everything on it that I would need as a guitarist to do one gig. If
And I
it's
even
one
have,
guitar for a gig, yeah.
I have these
Coil tap.
switches for a call tap and one to have the neck pickup for some reason. It came like this. I didn't make it, but so this is basically all that I need. But I find myself looking at, oh, I'd really love to have a jazz master, because it has such a nice vibrato and such crisp single coil tones that cannot be found on a Telecaster or a Strat. And also like a casino style with P90s and a hollow body, because I have nothing like that at the moment. I have a semi-hollow, which is not quite the same, and the hollow that I have is a full body, but 2-inch size 335 style. But okay, so what price point should we look at? The 500-pound mark, that there's great guitars, or maybe at the Eastman's like I had and I sold, which is like £1,000 mark, or maybe I should really save, okay, and buy a forever guitar. Just go for the Gibson. But if you're going for the Gibson, maybe just go for the Murphy Labs, and it's once and then sort of thing. But what if I don't like it? Then I'm stuck with it. So maybe I should try some. So this keeps going on and on and on.
Yeah,
for
it does because when I do look at guitars, you can get sucked into vintage stuff as well. And I think
I don't have the budget, but I believe you.
and I haven't, and I keep thinking, right, what would I really want? And I do keep changing my mind on a daily basis. But I've got a thing about gold tops. I like P90 pickups. David Gilmour recorded the guitar solo in Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 on a mid-50s P90 equipped gold top. A lot of people think he played that on a Fender, and he didn't. And that for me, because that same guitar has still got the same clout that a regular Les Paul has got. So you've got a hugely versatile guitar there with a massive spectrum of tone that you could dial in. Basically, you could do one gig with that entire guitar, not take a shed load of stuff with you.
And you're already saying that in some gigs you do have to bring one guitar. So I'm assuming that you must be thinking like, well, I have a few guitars. I'm not using all of them. I'm already taking to the gig one guitar regardless. I could just consolidate into a vintage instrument. That. But then the other question is, but would you take a vintage guitar to a gig at the pub?
Probably not.
That you can break the headstock?
No, it is a dilemma. And the other thing I'm thinking of is these instruments on your wall there, and say, for example, behind me on the wall here, I just like looking at them because
as well,
they are a form of art. And you think, wow, that looks great. And there's a bit of,
And then you just have one, and then it's like, what am I doing with the rest of this plate? Paintings, never.
I'll say, what am I going to do with the rest of the room? So okay, so you've just mentioned about your Helix on the floor. Now I'm completely different to you. I'm completely not. I've done all the digital stuff years ago when Line 6 came out first time round, if you will. So I came from valve amps to digital. And it's around about 2017, I then started thinking, right, let me get back to valve amps. That's how I ended up with the Laney Lionheart. Great amp. Started building up my effects pedals. They're all analog stomp boxes. Got one or two on it. I've just grabbed this. Stuff like this. The MXR Phase 90 script. It's trying to focus on my head. There we go. Dave Gilmour used some of these. I've got stuff like this kicking about. I've got Univibes. And for me, it's if we get a particular song in the set for the band to play, I've got to choose what the arrangement's going to be, how I'm going to play it, what instrument I'm going to play it on, how I'm going to achieve the tones using things like these that I want to achieve through my signal chain, and how's it going to come out of the amp, and how's it going to fit in with the mix of the band. And these are all the things I find interesting, really. And the analog stuff, it's all knobs and things, and they're pretty sort of bulletproof. And that's what I like to do. The other thing about effects pedals is, beg your pardon, is that if you've got a whole bunch of these, you've got a big muff in a box there. There's a TS-808 tube scream. There's a Boss Blues driver over there. It's almost like in opening up a box of fireworks. Which one shall I set fire to now? You know, And it's like it's such a colourful array, and they've all got bizarre names like the Big Muff. Who thought of that? You know, and then other people have gone even worse, which we can't even sort of say on channels because people think you're just wrong, you know. But I find it hugely enjoyable. But the tones that these things offer to me as a guitarist is brilliant, and I can't get enough of these things. And the good thing about these is they'll be of some value in the years to come as well.
Yes.
And
if one breaks, it didn't break the whole signal chain. If one went wrong for some reason, you were not stuck. Like I have been. Like I was going to do the open mic at the Waterloo, and I took the Helix on stage. And well, on that day, first I forgot the leads, the power leads that it needed. It's the same as an amp.
Yeah.
So I got the power leads, turned it on, and it said, "Patch is rebuilding, 1 of 1,000." It's like, okay. Someone else needs to come, please, and I'll go there and wait while it's rebuilt. And then I got it, and then it had no sound. So I ended up playing straight into a Gruger Coogan amp that was set up very strange. So, so it can happen. The digital stuff is a thing. I think it's really. I've had really good sound. It's easier to manage, but I've also struggled to get proper levels on stage, because especially if you're playing with drums, it just lacks the guitar sound from stage to the front, because drums are either mic'd or can be picked up from the different microphones. So mixing it, although it can be easier if you're on a really big stage, I guess, on the smaller stages and the medium stages that are around us. First, I never seen anyone really complain about volume that much if you're being reasonable. So it's possible to play with amps. Sometimes the issue is more PA, having good PA, which is not that common. So if you can reserve the PA just for vocals, might be better than trying to put the guitar sound for the PA and trying to manage that with different people doing different things. Johnny is telling us here. I'm just gonna actually put this on the
right.
screen. Look at this. It looks professional. As time goes by, I think most players tend to upgrade their guitars, but obviously it depends on disposable money. Some of them do. Yeah, I think the notion of a forever guitar for me is a bit unreasonable, because I tend to go for things and like and change, and so my forever guitar is when I die. My wife is going to look at the wall. Hopefully, she'll die after me. She's gonna look at the walls like, "These were his forever guitars." I can take a picture now and put it on his Instagram. He just bought them last week. Speaking of which, tomorrow I'm gonna receive again a purchase that I really had no need for, but a baritone guitar.
Oh right, right.
So there's, I could say, I thought about this, and it's a really affordable one, so I'll be able to do the unboxing video, first impressions, right? And then a little video about its stock, okay? And then I can upgrade little things that don't cost me much, and then I can do another video about the upgrades, right? And then maybe I can. Okay, so there's a lot of maybes here. In reality, what happened is I've been looking at this guitar. It's the East Coast. So East Coast is a Indonesian made brand of guitars that Anderton's PMT and Guitar had as house brand for a
Oh,
little
right.
while.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are an Indonesian brand that now also make the Solo King, which Anderton's has, and Steve Cassidy made a video on, and they were popular in Indonesia. Nefuri Music is a shop that I've seen them have special runs and everything, which is a really interesting concept because it's an Indonesian shop that has access to the Indonesian factories, so they can really spec them like
Right, I see.
American guitars, in the sense that they can really go for the top of the range. Is not Squire telling an Indonesian factory, we want you to make a guitar for this much money because you want to then sell it for this much with the next amount of profit. But taking all that back, East Coast guitars, they must be. When I think about all the supply chain, guitars must cost like £50 to make, if that much. Unfortunately,
but it comes back down to what do you want from the instrument? You know, it's
a little bit of fun.
And that everything, it doesn't matter what the instrument costs if it just gives you what you want from it and you love it, and it doesn't matter what level you're at, as long as it gives you enjoyment, that's the main thing. Keep playing your guitars, you know.
I wanted to try a baritone. I never played a baritone really, and sometimes it takes a little time to actually get to grips with it. It's on sale now for £99.
Right.
I can show you here. It's a Telecaster shaped like a Cabronita with dual humbuckers, and it's £99. And I was like, I don't buy pedals because I have the Helix, so all the pedals I could ever want and more. And I've been seeing, and it's out of stock, so I wasn't the only one to buy it.
Looks like they're flying off the shelves at the minute. So yeah.
So it's a good. I'll change here the scene. Can you see that?
Oh, there we go. Right with you. Yeah, East Coast. Is it TI baritone guitar?
T1. Yeah.
But yeah, T1. Oh, that's nice. Yeah. £99 bargain at Anderton's. Yeah.
See, it's like even if I had to travel somewhere to try it, it would cost me like £20 to go to Manchester and back. So,
yes. Yeah.
And thinking about like the finishing, if you wanted just to buy a body, or even if you just wanted to buy a conversion neck for a guitar, it's going to be more than that. So I already have plans. Cream pickup rings, because these black on black pickup rings make no sense to me. And I have a humbucker, a rolling mill iron gear guitar pickup, so I might be able to put it here. And this is also part of the fun of the rewiring and the resoldering and the modding and everything. So tomorrow, Saturday, should be.
I mean, if you look at the price point with that, I bought a guitar for £200 35 years ago, and it had a neck like a banana. It was awful. You know, these things are manufactured very well at a price. And again, it comes back to the point, is modern day sort of manufacturing techniques with CNC machinery, which back in my engineering days, CNC means computer numerically controlled. It's all binary code.
Look at it.
You can't go wrong, you know, and it's good. Just talking about the different levels and abilities, it's just reminded me of another thing we've done on the YouTube channel this year. This came about completely by accident. The Naked Guitar series. I don't know whether you've watched any of those. Yeah. I mean, what are your thoughts on those, Raphael? At the minute, I mean, it's
they really. I think they should almost go on Spotify on terms of music, guitar music, because often. I'm thinking, because I just had an idea come to me at the moment. Like, so what you've done, just to recap for the people that don't know about it, is you took all the clips of a specific guitar and put them together in a video, right?
Yeah, but what it is when I've done, say, for example, the Telecaster video, which went out last week, there's like roughly about 1 minute of guitar playing at the beginning. So I'm trying to keep the actual video length down to around about I aim for roughly about, say, 10 minutes. I often fail because there's that much material that needs to go into it. And they sort of end up around about 14, 15 minutes in length. But that 1 minute guitar solo is improvisation. But in the background, in actually producing that, there's probably about 10 or 11 minutes of improvisation, which nobody's seen. And I got this idea in August, and it's all about, how can I put it? It's you're playing with your heart on your sleeve.
Got it.
As you go through the musical journey, playing to a backing track, you've gone on a little bit of a musical adventure, and I'm not afraid for people to see my mistakes in there. There's some, I would say there's some decent guitar playing in there, but there's also bits where I think, oh, my timing was out there, or I played a little bit of a wrong note here, or something's not quite right. And I don't mind people watching that, and it's really geared up so people can see people like me. Pete Thorne did a video on Guitarist, the Guitarist magazine's channel this last few days. And he said in his videos, he says, basically what you see is the 50th take of that one guitar solo, because he said he makes piles of mistakes. And to be honest, I've met the bloke, I believe him. I've gone about it a different way. I've done a 10-minute solo, and what I do is I pull about a minute out of that, which I think is all right. I'm not too bothered because I'm a human being. I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. And it just goes to show that I'm not a robot. I'm not digital. I'm organic. And what you see is what you get. So if you watch those naked guitar videos, it's not been creatively edited. I've got this camera on here, which is this one at the minute, and I've got an iPhone sat on a lighting stand to give me a different angle. The cab's mic'd up. It goes into my door, which is Ableton. I've got a backing track by the Elevated Jam tracks. I bought about 500 of them, so I've got loads of them to go out at the minute. So I basically put it on. I'm in a world of my own roughly for about 10, 12 minutes, working my way through an improvisation. And yes, there are mistakes in it. So guys, get out there. Don't worry about making mistakes, because everybody does. It's just like a lot of YouTubers hide them. And that's what they do.
Yes.
They're all in the cutting room floor. They're on the floor hidden. So yeah,
Well,
so Pete Thorne, that's what it's all about. That's what the Naked Guitar series is all about.
Got it. I had watched the Firebird one and the Texas special, but I haven't watched the Telecaster one. But I was saying that the idea was, I have often thought about, like, okay, what does a Stratus supposed to sound like, or what does a Firebird supposed to sound like?
Yeah.
And that's sort of the answer to those questions as well, in terms of, okay, this is what it can sound like in this context. But it's true, like, you're not the first person, and especially on lives, I've seen people that play guitar sort of struggle to get a riff, which I thought, oh, they must hear it and sort of work it out within 2 tries. But it takes time for muscle memory to get right. And when improvising, not that I'm amazing at it, but sort of I'm starting to realize, well, okay, sometimes the idea comes by bits. You work on it, and it's like, oh, I like that bit, so I'm going to play that again and add a bit more here. Oh, actually, it should be this or that. So it is a good idea.
It all came about purely because of those little bits of guitar solos I was doing, because in the background there's humongous ones. Now, if you take it to the professional context, say, for example, when I interviewed Wayne Banks, who's the bass player of the Classic Rock Show, great bass player, and they decided to do a Rush track on last year's Classic Rock Show tour. There's a track called YYZ, an instrumental, very, very technical, and he was doing a tour before the Classic Rock Show tour, and he was driving his other band members mad by playing this track repeatedly. And when he was doing sound check or warming up, he'd be playing the bass line for this YYZ to get that muscle memory, to get it embedded in his system. So that when it came to the Classic Rock Show tour, it was a case of, right, I'm almost on my game with this. Now, I was fortunate enough to sit through several sound checks, because I interviewed them in Liverpool, but I interviewed them about sort of 5 or 6 weeks later in Bradford. And bizarrely enough, the same sound checks had the same songs in it, which they're still trying to brush up from 6 weeks earlier. So, for example, I'll just mention one or two. YYZ was definitely one of those, particularly the ending. Tim Brown, the drummer, is very technically very good, and he wanted the dynamics of the ending to be spot on. So that, again, I saw that being worked on 2 different occasions, 6 weeks apart. Another track was One of These Nights by the Eagles. James Cole, the musical director, he wanted to go through the introduction of the harmonies on the guitar parts at the beginning of that world famous Eagles track. In fact, we used to do that in the Cooper Collective, but we only had one guitarist in that. That was me trying to replicate that. In this, they've got Pete Thorne and James Cole doing it. Excuse me. So they keep going back to these tracks. So, and the interesting thing is that people do make mistakes, and professionals make mistakes right up the levels. So don't be afraid to make mistakes, guys. It's what it's all about. That's exactly what it is. You know, if you get
and
up
you're
and
saying
open
that,
night, you know,
and you're saying that, and I'm thinking of all the times that I've been in a rehearsal room trying new songs with people that I've just met basically and played 10 minutes so far, and we're all getting a bit frustrated because we have to repeat the song for the third time that we sort of heard a few times before the rehearsal room at Rock Hard Studios in Blackpool or something like that. And you're like, okay, we've practiced it 4 or 5 times. That's good enough. It's like, no, none of the parts are right, but it's odd to say, oh, we should do this again. Oh, you do this. I'm gonna try to do that, and also ourselves, myself particularly, not to get frustrated with the lack of results straight away. So it's good to know, and it's good to keep in mind that that's part of the musical journey. We have to. It's almost more important to have the skill to bear with the mistakes and work on them and continue to work on them than maybe be some sort of prodigy that you are able to straight away pick up on everything, because no one else will be able to keep up as well.
Yeah, it's again with the making mistakes bit. If you go into the rehearsal room, I mean, say for example, these headphones, that they're great in. You know, you can be sat watching TV, or and you can be listening to that track while you're walking the dog or something. So you get it ingrained into your head. You can go to the rehearsal rooms and have a good rehearsal, and then you go to your venue to play the gig. Then you've got the environment to deal with. There's been a few times I've had drunks fall over me. I've been covered in booze. You know, it's all over me gear. Something's gone, or something's happened, or
mate, do you know this song? Like your mid song? Could you do this?
No. Yeah, and you get all that, and so you end up with the environment causing you to not play your best as well. And that can be one of those things that you shouldn't get hung up about. We had a gig recently where the sound wasn't very good, and that was a professional sound engineer. That was nothing to do with us, and we all had an off night because of another person who doesn't understand the band or the set that we do.
It's so frustrating, like to get all the parts, everything, and then it's like, oh, I just wanted to have a nice experience.
And that's it. You've got all these difficult competing parameters that basically come in and throw you a curveball. And
I was listening back
that's
to
what we have to live with.
Yeah, I was listening back today to the only recording, because about a year ago, last September, I started playing with 2 other guys. The drummer I'm still playing with, but the bass player had such a bad experience at the first open mic that we went at the Waterloo with the sounds and the running order and the playing and everything, that was just like, I can't deal with this. It was like too much for him because he's quite a perfectionist. So it can break a person if you really want to have things to control your environment, to do what you want and have an enjoyable experience every time. And then you like make the effort to go out and do it, and it's like external factors affecting it. But on the other hand, often, even though there's things that might not go wrong, there's always a moment in the evening that you really feel, okay, it was all worth it. The hours of practice, getting everyone on the same page, loading everything, taking half a day to get here and to set up and then just wait. It's fun and it's worth something.
It is. I mean, the thing is what you're doing there, Raphael, is getting up and doing it. And again, it's all about the enjoyment side of it, and actually getting out there and putting yourself in front of people. And some people can't do that. Some people don't want to do that.
Which is fair as well.
Yeah, you know, we have that all day long. But the people that do go out there and do it and play the best that they intend to play the best, and if the environment sort of dictates that they can't deliver the best performance that night, well, that's beyond their control. You shouldn't really sort of get hung apart about it. Just get on with it as best as you can and try and enjoy it. That's the main thing. Don't worry about your mistakes. That's the main thing of the Naked Guitar series on my channel, is just enjoy it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just do your best.
There you go.
So yeah.
Just do your best. Very good.
Anyway.
Well, Kev, an hour has passed, and
I'm just looking at the time. Yeah.
yes. And the rest of your family might want to have access to the internet again.
I know. Yeah, it's mechanical, our internet, our house. We're out in the sticks, the middle of nowhere. It's rubbish.
There's a guy pulling a lever just to get the internet to you, probably. And my family might want to have a little bit of me for this Friday night, other than me talking guitar, which I would gladly do for another 2 hours. But we have to save something for next time. I had asked you to think about a rig of around 3K. Last week I did around £1,000 because we're mere peasants, but you've retired from the force, which everyone knows that pays extremely well. All the police officers are basically millionaires these days. But maybe we can look into that next time, leave the people wanting for more.
Absolutely.
I hope you had a good time here. It was really nice to hear your insight and share what you've been trying to do and accomplishing with your channel. Because the thing that I always try to say, and it applies to everyone, the importance of the success of the YouTube channel, although it could be measured in views, okay, I think it's more important the value of the product itself. And I must say that all your videos are extremely high quality with a lot of thought and production value.
Cheers, Raphael. Yeah.
So even this is going to be very morbid what I'm going to say, but you know, all those artists that are found out after they pass away, it's like, oh, it was such a genius that did these paintings and songs. You'll be looking like Kevin Barry, a pioneer on YouTube land that wasn't appreciated in the 2020s. Hopefully this will change.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not after any major success. It's you just look at. I use the phrase value. Is there any value in me producing the content? And I'm not too bothered about stats, but I do get a bit of a lift when people give you positive comments.
Yeah,
and that is nice. And I've had lots on the Telecaster video. In fact, it's been a great video. That's made me think about 2024. There's going to be more reviews, more stuff in the studio here, rather than going out to do gig reviews, because that's the value side of it. I'll use that phrase again, is not as good. So if there's any amp manufacturers out there, luthiers and stuff, why not? Carl Longbottom Custom Guitars, we'll probably be doing a guitar review for him. I know quite a few people through the guitar shows now. So we'll see what comes from that, and we'll see what happens. It's all about enjoyment at the end of the day, and that's what we want to do, is just enjoy it.
That's it. I'm saying this, and it's like having a really well-rehearsed gig where you sing perfectly and you play perfectly, but the only people in attendance is the bar staff. It's like, we still did our job, but it's not the same as having a full room of people enjoying what you're doing and sharing in the love. To everyone else, thank you so much for watching. Thank you, James. Thank you, Johnny. Even thank you, Marcia, my dear wife, that has to put up with me every day. And I'll see you all next week for another live stream. The adults are talking guitar. Bye-bye.